name is Sherry Ray. I am a coach and a consultant based in Houston, Texas. I work with individuals, leadership of municipalities and corporations to maximize the development of collaboration, creativity, and unrealized well-being in their personal and professional lives. Through understanding, I teach how you can replace struggle with joy. In today's webinar, what are you willing to forfeit your peace for? We're going to take a look at some choice points and really see more about the choices we can make to support the feeling we prefer to live in. Thanks for joining. I think we don't realize we have choices to participate to support the feeling we'd like to live in more of the time. So just in this moment, if you just kind of consider and reflect, just reflect within yourself, what's your preferred feeling that you would like to have more of in your life? It's very individual, but you really get a chance to reflect on what feeling or feelings would you like to live in more of the time? Kind of like your default setting, or not your default setting, I won't use that one, but your base setting. Or oftentimes, if we're in this game of learning, a lot of times we're seeking a better feeling in life. So would anybody like to share what feeling you'd like to have more of in your life?
This is not a trick question. Oh my goodness.
It really isn't a trick question. It's a reflection question.
No, oh my gosh. I would like to have more joy and I'd like to have more peace and calm. How about that?
Okay. All right. Fabulous. I'll make some notes on this one. Great. Joy, peace, and calm. I love all that. All right. Anybody else want to share?
I'd like to have more, what's the feeling? I think, I don't know how to put it, like a feeling, like, I feel like a peaceful and calm most of the time, but I have longings. I would like to have more ease around the longings that I have that are really beyond my reach at this moment in time. If they're there, maybe, I don't know, should I reach for them or should I not reach for them? That's what I wonder.
Nice one. Nice one. Thank you. Thank you. Who else?
I would like to have more oomph in my life. I have a lot of calm and peace, and I love what that person said about longing. But I have longing as well, but it's the oomph to make things happen.
And when you think about the longing, you don't have to tell me specifically what the longings are, but if you received or were living those longings, what do you feel that would, what experience do you feel that would give you?
More aliveness. That I am in the right place, doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Kind of consider what the I'll say what the suggestion is from your mind, that if you had this, this, and this, life would be better. And then it's good to kind of see what the picture is that's getting painted, or the feeling that would come from having those things, you know? And so that experience, whatever that experience is, would be a good thing to really notice. It's not the things, but it's the feeling.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree with you. And for me, it's about creating. It's about making things happen. And it's I suppose in a sense, maybe what I'm looking for is energy.
Physical or inspiration?
Perhaps physical, because I'm recovering from an injury. But and yeah, the energy of community as well, to to, I guess, to raise that energy of doing together, of making together.
Kind of a synergistic.
Yeah.
And I think that and that would come back to the aliveness, like you mentioned a second ago.
Yes.
And yeah, creation and aliveness. Yeah, all that does bring forth. And I always love that idea about, and I don't know, it looks to me like aliveness and comes from the source of everything. Whatever is sourcing life, is that aliveness is coming from that.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, we'll point to that and that as well. Thank you. Anybody else? Because aliveness can oftentimes cover a whole lot of, what do you want to say? A whole lot of itches. Aliveness can scratch a whole lot of itches. Yeah. Anybody else have that heart, that desired feeling? Okay. So I think if we start to really see what our default setting is, if we really look at the default setting that human beings are, I'll say, with vacation mind, I'll put that in there. So just when you think about when you're at your most relaxed state, or vacation mind, as I call it, what do you notice? What do you notice when you go on vacation and how you feel when it's a really great vacation? Yeah.
I think you are much more aware of what's going on around you. I think it seems like everything is brighter and clearer and more, I don't know, everything's got edges. You see things a lot more. You're more sensitive to what's going on right around you. Everything looks new.
In a way, do you think you're more present?
I'm thinking that's why everything looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Anybody else? That's a great point.
The one word that comes to me is open. You just usually feel completely open, open to possibilities, open to newness, and there's a lot less hunkering down, and just wide open.
Yes, absolutely.
I was just going to say ease. There is an ease in how I am when I'm on holidays. Everything is relaxed and calm and ease.
Great. I mean, who would ever want more ease, aliveness, and openness? I think those are all
great
home runs. The trifecta of home runs in the human experience, It can't go wrong. I mean, but that truly is our very natural state of being. That really is. So it's like if we really start to be curious, if that's true, that your natural state of being is inspired, alive, hopeful, heartfelt, lighthearted, you really see that little kids come into the planet like that, and when they're out on the playground being themselves, they're really all the description of vacation mind. Really vacation mind. So it's like, okay, so if that's how we came onto the planet, before we got domesticated, I kind of call it domesticated, and learned how we had to navigate the the system we were dropped into. It's like what we can do is start to be a little more curious about what takes you out of that. If that's your natural state of being, inspired, alive, peaceful. I mean, peaceful is really on the top of the list for me this year in 2024. And that's when this topic kind of dropped in my head about seeing that there's a choice point in how you support the feeling you want to live in. So if it is about being, for mine, peaceful, if it is about being more open, if it is about starting to see that there's a participation on your side of the line of what supports that feeling, is that something that you're interested in participating in and supporting the feeling you want to live in? Does it feel like you have participation? That's a good question for me to come back to and ask. Do you feel like there's anything on your side of the line that involves you to support this feeling? Great, great. And if not, please share, because a lot of times, especially in our culture, it looks like that we're at the affect of what the world is doing, or what the people in the world are doing, or what the people are in our house are doing, or the people in our community are doing. You know, it really looks like that all of that needs to be a certain way for me to be able to live in the feeling that I want to live in. But what if that's not true at all? What if that's not true at all? So I say that because if you know you possess peace, you possess aliveness, I'll say your default setting is vacation mind. And then you get a little bit curious about where does it go?
I don't think it goes anywhere. I think it's always there, but it gets covered up by getting lost in the mind in
Right.
beliefs and contracted down to, conditioned mind.
Absolutely. 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 Does that feel, if you reflect on that, does that feel true? That when I'll say vacation mind, when you're on vacation, how much of that stuff have you parked on the side for the 4 days, the week? It's like somehow not consciously you've made this agreement with yourself about, okay, hall pass. Yeah, it's all going on the shelf. And when the plane lands, I'll pick it back up. Okay. It's very, 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 very true. 100% true. So in this question that I'm posing today about what are you willing to forfeit your peace for? What's on your side of the line is to notice and really make a choice from a position of understanding and from a position of choice about really where you raise your awareness about, am I willing to forfeit my aliveness for, you get to fill in the blank, XYZ. Am I willing to forfeit my peace, fill in the blank, for XYZ? Am I willing to forfeit I'll even use the word umph. The umph came up earlier, you know what I mean? And umph is your natural state of being to create and to move and to be inspired. That's your natural state of being. Except when we start to believe all the mind chatter about what's available to me. And that seems so convincing and seems so real. It's the big wet blanket. It's the big wet blanket that gets laid over who and what you naturally are. Now, I'd love to hear if you think I'm just full of caca or if that has any sort of resonance of truth inside you as even a possibility.
Yeah, I find what you're saying is true. Yeah.
Because it's like how much think about I think we with all the energy that a kid has, you know, and given a pile of sticks and a you know a kid that wanted to make a fort or anything else out of sheets and blankets or whatever, you know, so like if there's just like a movement of energy that they go with. And I really believe every day I get a chance to live, I really believe and see that that's available today, regardless of your age, if you'd let yourself do it. But we think we're going to get our, you know, I've got my big girl panties on, and we don't do that, or whatever you make up, you know, whatever you make up, that it's like that's for them, but not for me. And
I think
who
that-
made that rule?
I think that's definitely true. And your example about vacation just really brings it home because, and the same thing happens when I do the painting process, right? So you don't have to do an expensive vacation. You can do it, you know, right here, right now. But it's like a switch, right? Like it feels like, oh, I can be that way over here. But then when I switch back over to here, to normal life, something happens.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm inviting you to see a choice point in your life where your normal life is more oriented to the feeling you want to live in, not in the scratching your way to find that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
See, so if that's your natural setting, you don't need to scratch your way to it. You just have to see what separates you from that. And that's a great inquiry. And so it comes to the part where you really get to decide about how important is the feeling you live in. If it's not important to you, then that's fine and dandy too. But if you see and if you really kind of check in with yourself and be curious about how important is the feeling that you live in day to day. Not the 2 weeks out of the 52 that you're on vacation, but really how important is the feeling you live in day to day.
Yeah, it's very important.
So here we are at the first of the year, and I think it's a good, a really good time to kind of consider how important it is. Whatever the feeling is for you that you want to live in and feel more of, you can decide that. And since hopefully now you realize that's already who you are, so it's not outside of you. It's who you are today, right here, right now. And then if you get to, you know, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely, I'm on board to support living in more peace, living with more inspiration, living with more oomph. You know, you pick your number. There's not a right number or a wrong number. You just pick your number. And then what you can do is you start to notice it's within your wheelhouse to what you give your bandwidth to. Because what you give your bandwidth to is gonna be what fuels and sends the message to your emotions. And that's what's gonna send the message to your emotional state. So you start to notice it's like, I don't know, any challenge in life, what's in your wheelhouse and what comes to be a choice point is when something is really, as you raise your awareness and pick your head up, and you can start to notice where your head is hanging out. You know, and our mind is like a dog with a great slipper. You know what I mean? It wants to chew on it and not give it up. You know, I mean, to try to take I don't know, if I tried to take one of those hoof things from my dog, it's like not happening. Well, that really is very much how my mind and everybody else's mind can go on a topic, especially a topic that you don't feel comfortable with, or you don't like, or you think is wrong, or you think shouldn't be happening. And as you start to see, it's like, okay, wait a minute. wait a minute, I'm at a choice point here. I'm at a real choice point here that am I willing to forfeit my peace for that? Whatever that is. Now, it might be a world event. It might be the neighbor next door. It might be something that happened 50 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 minutes ago. It's a choice point that you can start to raise your awareness to and notice and even have that question. Are you willing to forfeit whatever that feeling is for that? So I'd love to hear if anything is on your mind or question or curiosity or just where that's traveling inside your head. I'd love to hear.
No, I guess what you're making me think about is that how many times, okay, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but like, okay, so if we're painting, you might come up, notice an energy drop, and you might say, hey, give me a number. Where are you right now? And if it's 5, you might go, oh no, that's not good enough. What could you paint that would, what could you paint, and my first reaction might be, oh, but I got to finish this. And I think that in life, it's more like, I know we've talked recently about identities and old identities that we're not letting go of or whatever. And I think a lot of the time when your energy is low and you're not having a good time, it's because you're trying to be faithful, or at least for me, I should say me, when I'm trying to be faithful to what I think other people expect of me or what my view of myself is in a certain role. Well, if I don't finish this, I'm not a good wife, or if I don't do that, I'm not a good mother or a good friend or a good dog owner or whatever. I think that we have made up so many rules that I don't even know a lot of the time that I'm caught up in, yes, standards that I've set for myself, but really, which I don't have to do it that great. I mean, it doesn't have to be that perfect. I could do, a half-assed job and it would be good enough. And I could go on and do something I like better or whatever. But I mean, I think the biggest struggle for me is I'm now to the point where I catch myself when my energy is low, but what to do about it then? I would love to hear more about what you want to say. Like when you get caught up in the moment and somebody's aggravated you at the bank or whatever, how do you go like, oh, this is not where I want to be?
Well, I really do. I notice where my head has traveled. Say something like that happens, and my mind is down the road. You know what I mean? On how this is wrong and it shouldn't be happening, and where's the customer service that used to be, and oh yeah. All of the, standards of some other universe, and I'm like going, whoa, wait a minute. And I just kind of come back to this present moment going, I don't have to follow where my mind wants me to go. You see, it's like that the same thing is like, well, am I willing to give up my peace for this bank teller that was having a rotten day? And or the car repair dude, like the car repair dude the other day that said, he gives me his business card, and I said, so I should call you? And he said, well, you could try. I said, oh, okay. All right. So as I fumed over to my waiting spot, and I kind of sat there a minute, and I was like going, nope, not handing him my piece. I said, I'm coming back to center. I was like, how that guy shows up has nothing to do with me. So, I mean, it's a practice. It's a practice like almost like a meditation or a place of, for me, I care about how I feel. You know what I mean? Moment to moment, day to day, I really care. Not that I can control it. I'm not trying to control anything, but I'm trying to really nurture and support living in that feeling more often and being able to see that that it's a choice point to forfeit my feeling for something somebody else is doing. Or to your point, really, it's like if my mind tells me that, I'll use that line that I had a minute ago about like, oh, well, they can do that, but you can't, and I'm like going, hmm, hmm. That's another concept and idea that I don't have to buy into. So there's a choice point. It's a choice point to look deeply into what your mind making up, and it's a choice point to look away from what your mind is made up or what you lived up to this point. You don't have to continue to fight your history in the future. You can just look away from it. You don't have to fix the past to live in peace. You don't have to fix the past to live in a better feeling, to come back to your natural state of being. So does that help at all? And what you're
It does. Thank you, Sherry. I have another meeting I have to go to, but wow, only 30 minutes and I got something. Thank you.
okay, I'll see you later.
I like that idea of having choice and coming back to the center. For me, it's not that easy to come back to the center when my thoughts are running away with me, or I'm feeling, really upset about the way the world is, and I don't see any hope, or so that what you're saying is there is choice, and that it is a practice. And I think and I really liked whatever that woman left, what she said, about energy level. I can understand that. So it's like bringing your energy up again, and what does that take? What do I need to do to bring that energy up to where it's calm? For
And
myself.
when you kind of reflect on that, it's like not so much what you need to do, but what could you take off your mind or look away from?
Yeah, maybe guilt.
What was that?
I said maybe it's guilt.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I would say that's a concept that contaminates a whole lot of people's peaceful mind, is
Yeah,
a concept of guilt or wrongdoing and just being human and just being, we're just beings that put our foot in our mouth or say things we wish we hadn't said or do things we hadn't done. And we don't let ourselves off the hook and act like it was very intentional.
mhm. Yeah, and guilt about not being able to do anything in the face of the world crisis, just witnessing it and being in that place of stuckness, I suppose, in that, But then, there is a point where that becomes habit. And I think that's what you're saying as well, that we take on that blanket of habitual thinking. And I know for me as well, that may be very true, that so a question I could ask myself, who would I be without the blanket of guilt, shame, and all of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you touched on about the habit or the patterns of thinking that come in when I feel unsure about something.
Yeah.
Or the habits of when I want to try something new. And then anytime it's the habits of what seems to show up that seems so believable when you get an inspiration.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it kind of turns into this vicious cycle of you get an inspiration and then you squash it. And you get an inspiration and you squash it. And then in the squash state, you're wanting inspiration, but then it comes and then you squash it. Innocently. It's all so innocent. It's all so innocent. But I think you can kind of in this place of kind of using all of this to wake us up, that we start to wake up when a fresh feeling comes in, you don't really need to have to worry about it, but just notice it. It's a fresh feeling. And we all have the capacity for a fresh thought and fresh feeling. And what are we going to do with it? If I know I have a choice point, I don't have to squash it. And I don't have to believe that, you tried that 14 times. When are you going to give it up? It's like, well, we're playing with infinite potential here in every moment in life. Infinite potential. It's not unique to you. Your limitations are unique to you, depending on what your mind's told you. But we're playing with infinite potential.
The guilt thing struck a chord with me, and also the habitual negative thinking. For me, I lose my good feelings when my animals are sick or injured, or it has to do with those I'm responsible for. And so I'll often find myself caught in this sense of responsibility and not knowing how to separate myself. It's kind of codependent. How do I separate my good feeling out when someone I love is suffering? Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense to me. And I think it comes back to, we would never choose suffering for anybody or anything.
Right.
Never choose it. I mean, I wouldn't. I would never choose intentionally to cause harm or hurt someone. But I also know that I can't control anything. And that the nature of life, I'll say even the cycle of life, there are elements of the cycle of life that I can't control. Now, if it's 100% due to my conscious negligence on my part, I'll say conscious negligence, then it might be, and I did it on purpose, I might have something to feel guilty for, but I can't feel guilty for what I cannot control. And what I cannot control is the nature of life.
Yeah, I guess I kind of get a inflated idea of what I'm able to control, because I do control so much of their lives. It's how I care for them, and what I provide or don't provide is are things I do control. So it's like separating out that realization that just because I make choices on their behalf, I can't then control the outcome.
Never.
Yeah, that's a
Never.
hard one for me.
I think that's for everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, when I really, really kind of get curious about how much control do I have over anything,
Mhm.
either circumstances in my life or the people in my life, it's like the nature of life. It's I think that comes back to that piece about how can we learn to not forfeit my peace over things I cannot control.
Right.
Why would I fight the nature of life? I cannot know the lifespan of anything, and I'm not at the control panel of weather, and I'm not the control panel of food chain supply and all that other kind of stuff. That's way above out of my reach. So it's like, am I willing to forfeit my peace for things that I can't control? And I think it really invites vulnerability to really sit back and realize how much I can't control. And boy, there's part of us that doesn't want to throw up the white flag that it can't control it. But your heart. I know you know your heart, Dale, and I know that there's not a living thing you would harm. and then what our individual minds make up about what's happening. It's like if you know if you know your heart, and then you just kind of get on to what the mind's making up, we can just quit, drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
It's a painful drink that what the mind offers up, I don't know. It's a very painful cocktail of yuck,
Yeah.
of toxicity. It's a painful cocktail of toxicity. I never thought about those words together, but that is.
Really deeply resonates with me because that's a very strong pattern that I have also. And if my personal animals are not, I mean, it's ridiculous the degree of responsibility that I take. It's way above and beyond extreme positive standard of living. It's almost like I set myself up to be their cruise director of life, that to set up this happy life. And the responsibility is insane. I mean, it's crazy. And it's not only my personal animals, but I take that on for all animals and feel a responsibility to ensure all animals aren't suffering. And that's a huge freaking weight to try and bear. I mean, it's impossible. And I do forfeit my peace for that often. And, I do what I can when I see a situation. But there's only so much any one human can do. And that thing that you said, Sherry, about, just accepting what I can and cannot control, that's a really hard one in that particular arena for me to accept.
Mhm, mhm. No, I think that point about your example about the animals is that, we just can't. But I love how you point to, and what you can start to notice is like how much pressure. Now the pressure was created from that standard.
Mm-hmm.
So we had those habits of standards where it was like she was talking previously about being a good wife or a good friend or a good this or a good mom, and I think moms have carry a lot of pressure for some standard, and it absolutely separates them from being present and peaceful with their kids. But that pressure is getting onto that just shows you where the true source of pressure comes from. The true source of pressure is never outside of us, ever. Sure looks like it.
It's interesting. What has come to me in listening and the piece about, you would never hurt another individual. Well, no, I wouldn't. However, I don't consider myself part of that group.
Yeah.
When I start beating myself up, I don't stop and say, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm first on that list." And if I'm going to sit here and make myself and those around me, because if I'm miserable, it's not, and nobody around me is happy watching it. And I happen to live with a man who doesn't take it on, which used to just irritate the hell out of me. It's like I'm slamming kitchen drawers and cabinets, and he's like watching, or just leaves the room, or goes to sleep, and it was like, how dare he? Well, the person who was doing all that was me, of course. But the other thing about an animal, it's interesting. I've had an interesting experience lately. My son had a cat for 20 years, and he died recently. And our son doesn't want to talk about it. He's in a lot of pain, and I mean, he's had this cat for 2/3 of his life. Mm. We've had the cat for 2/3 of our life too. I mean, he lived in the house with all of us. But what I started doing, and I've learned this over time, is instead of walking around feeling guilty or bad or um, what could I have done, I allow myself to have the feelings of sadness or grief or whatever you want to call it, the normal feelings that human beings have. But I've also started doing some collaging with him, with pictures of Oscar, the cat. And it brings me such incredible joy to do that. And I even put this wonderful picture of him on my phone, on the screen, whatever that's called, I forget. And every time I turn on the phone, I talk to him. He's right there in my face. So it's what I'm learning, and I learned this when my brother died a few years ago, and I hadn't been with him for years and for a number of years for various reasons. I immediately started doing a little, like an ofrenda, a little altar in my kitchen. And I did that for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. I can't remember. So every day I was in touch with that feeling and in touch with him and in touch with that period of time. And when it was over, it was over. The heaviness of it, or I didn't allow myself to go, because I didn't. I mean, we had an odd relationship, and we both knew it, and we talked about it. And you know, if he came to visit, he would not stay in the house with me, and he knew that. And that was a whole other thing. But my point is that if I would let myself get fully into whatever happened, not like it took my I don't know how to say this, not like it wasn't anything that dragged me down. It was actually lifting up my spirit, because I was present, fully present with it, and I was doing what I could do to keep it right in front of me until I didn't need it right in front of me. If that makes any sense. It was really powerful. And because when I get into conversations like this, I think, yeah, but what if this happened? That wouldn't qualify for what we're talking about. And it's like, well, so far everything has. And it's whether I'm willing to let go of self-flagellation, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even, but you know, and it just, so I have to sit myself down and say, wait a minute, what is it you think you could have done? and not only maybe you couldn't have done it then, but you certainly can't do it now.
Oh, good point.
So I just have to, I don't know, I just have to find a way to let myself experience whatever I have to experience and have that be okay. Have it be transcendent, not just be okay, but have it literally shift things to another level, another vibration, whatever you want to call it, another level of acceptance. But a joyful acceptance, not like, oh God. It's more like,
well, I think what you pointed to was I think in that place about a choice point is not going into the yeah, but.
Yes, yes.
You see, because the yeah, but is going to be the place that you forfeit your peace, because you're present to what you're feeling. Right. And then when you go off when you take the exit ramp to yeah, but, that's where your feeling state's going to suffer, because that's where the story maker is going to kick in. If you had, you should, knew this and knew that, and you're like, That's a choice point right there, to not take that exit ramp, because you really start to see there's no cheese in that hole, and that your state of well-being is going to suffer hanging out in all that what if stuff that you can't control, B can't, like you said, can't go back and fix, and that you really get to see too that I don't have to fix my past to live happy today.
And I don't have to fix the future.
No, just be with it. Just like you were saying, like be present to those feelings. And your wisdom
Yeah.
said, I'm making an ofrenda. It's like make the ofrenda. Yeah, but if you'd have done it, no, don't take the ramp.
Right. Right.
Don't take the exit ramp because your feeling state will suffer. Yeah, I think that's beautiful what you said about be present. You can just be present and not, it allows all that feeling to pass through, but it's when you
Yeah.
take that, yeah, but we cannot avoid, the fluctuation of a feeling state, but when you know that your default setting is lighthearted, peaceful, compassionate, and that you value that in your life, you start to see the choice points where you don't take the yeah but seriously because you're going to crash. Your feeling is going to crash. Anybody else have any other thoughts that are swirling around? Great, Pamela.
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is, I mean, basically, I think it's the case that I'm trying to figure out how to separate these thoughts. The case that resisting a feeling is part of not, attempting to control what's happening is, and part of that sometimes would be a tendency to want to resist feelings like what she's talking about, of feeling sad. And that's part of what gets us away from that aliveness, and that I think you can, I was getting confused at first when you were saying, what am I not going to forfeit my peace for? And wondering how that related, or if that could lead to bypassing. But I think, what she's saying is that you can still have peace and allow the feeling. They're not
Oh.
mutually exclusive. And that's the difference. I think it can be confusing to when you say, I prioritize my feeling state, to make it sound as if you're trying to control it, as opposed to making decisions to allow what comes, but not go off into the story about it.
Exactly. Excellent. And that I love that you made that distinction because it is like a muscle that the more you use it, the easier it gets. And it's not that I'm trying to control anything. It's that just noticing that there's a choice point in what I give my presence to, you know what I mean? If I'm going to stay in, well, I guess it's not even being present, but if I'm going off on how that shouldn't have happened with the bank teller or whatever, it's like the upset passes through pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not avoiding the feeling of upset. Can't really avoid it. and truly, but it feels like no, I'm not going for a spiritual bypass. I want to be present, but I want the feeling to come and I want the feeling to go.
Yeah.
And it's going to naturally do that, just like energy moves. It comes and it goes. It's only when, we park on the hose, so to speak, that we block the flow of, well, this shouldn't have been happening, that shouldn't be happening, I should be more. And if I'd have been this, that wouldn't have happened. And it's like, no, that's the place of choice point, going to be present to right here, right now. Feel what you feel. And all of those moments of inquiry about, I'm not willing to forfeit my peace for that. You see it more times than not, it's things you don't have control over anyway.
Right. Because we don't have control over much. But we don't like that.
Yeah, really, 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 really. I'd like to just have a little more control when I'm standing in front of the refrigerator. Like, what did I come here for? I want to eat something, but I don't know what I want. I wish I could control those urges just to get something, to that whatever you're not even aware of, an uncomfortable feelings passing through, and you're defaulting to stand in front of the refrigerator. But yeah, it is not a spiritual bypass, not any kind of bypass, not any kind of control. It's about really being present, but seeing where you're spending, where you're jeopardizing a better feeling over things you can't control, that are completely out of your reach.
Because as soon as you, let's say the bank teller, you feel that feeling of frustration, But as soon as you go off into the story about how it should have been different, you're not in that moment anymore. And so you're actually preventing yourself from just feeling the frustration and being done with it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. 100%. And so you will naturally feel lighter. If you're
Right.
not carrying the story from the red light, the person that cut you off, now the bank teller. I mean, all of that stuff is layer upon layer of wet blanket to your natural feeling state. If you let the driver that flipped you off, wait a minute, let it pass through. No, I didn't like it, but that person's not getting any more of my bandwidth. You'll come back again and again and again, and it all promotes being in the present moment, and not falling into those traps of me being a problem somehow. Totally. Anybody else have anything that I think it's just the first of the year. I was so grateful when that idea dropped in, or that insight dropped in about events that happen in your life. And I always kind of look at it going, okay, this is happening for me. This is happening for me. It's not happening to me. It's happening for me. And so I love that, because then something pops in like, are you willing to give up your piece on what that person's doing? I was like, nope. Does my mind still want to go over there and chew on it? Yep. Do I come back and say, it's just, potty training the mind. Come back, and we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. It's all in the practice of it. It's not in the attaining it or the perfection of it. It's all in the practice of it. And that's what supports you living in a better feeling more of the time. It's the practice of it. No perfection. There's no cure for being human. We're just going to wake up and be human, hopefully every single day. So until we don't.
Cool.
Say something.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I relate very much to everything what was said here. And just last night, I had this perfect example of what we are talking about. It was just so hard for me to let go of my own guilt, So, although I know exactly, it wasn't anything that I did to make me feel wrong. And I told myself, I didn't do anything wrong here whatsoever. It was really another person's fault, but it was in my head still, even though I already left that place an hour ago or something. It was still with me, and it was very hard, like you were saying, with this dog and the shoe. I was like caught in that. Very, very difficult to loosen myself with it. And I also realized, such an unpleasant feeling to feel blamed for something that wasn't really my fault at all. But what was I going to say? Yeah, the feeling was so unpleasant. It was such a heavy feeling in my chest. And I thought, oh my God, I want to get away from that feeling so bad until I kind of surrender to it. And I go, oh, where do I feel this? Where do yeah, in my chest, it's like, oh, it feels like 1,000,000 pounds in my chest. And then, oh, okay, maybe it's not as bad as trying to avoid it all the time. Yeah. Anyway, that was kind of very like all what was said here. But oh yeah, totally relate with everything. Yeah. And then also I realized, oh, I just have so much. Only this morning I really realized, oh my God, I have so much anger, not necessarily to the person, but to feel wrongly accused or blamed for something. Oh my God, I didn't realize how mad I was about this. And all those layers are here. And I try to feel comfortable, which is not happening in those times. And it shouldn't probably be happening until I find peace in the not so pretty.
I love that. That is a great t-shirt, finding peace in the not so pretty. That is a great bumper sticker and a great t-shirt. I mean, that would be, that's a meditation right there, you know? Yeah, that's beautifully stated. Thank you very much for joining us today in this conversation on what are you willing to forfeit your peace for? If you have any further questions or would like to schedule a complimentary conversation to see if working together is a good fit, please send me an email at sherry@sherryray.com. Thanks for listening.